So today it is my distinct pleasure of introducing our speaker, a man I have known for a couple of years now, and I know him to be as impressive a human being as I have ever had the pleasure of meeting. Buz Eisenberg is an attorney working with Einberg and Gardner of Northampton. He has also been a professor of government and law at GCC for some 16 years, where he was recently honored by having a scholarship endowed in his name, a scholarship intended to help defray the cost of education for current and future activists. Whoa. In addition, Buz is well known for his many years of volunteer work with Guantanamo prisoners. He was instrumental in getting 8 men freed from that hellish and evil place. And so he has received many honors and recognition for his work from many quarters, all of it well-deserved. Today, Buz is continuing in his lifetime practice of working for justice. Since the January 27th Executive Order on Immigrants, Buz has been working with a small group of volunteer attorneys and others to provide legal and other services to immigrants impacted by the administration's anti-immigrant and Islamophobic policies. Attorney Eisenberg will discuss today his personal observations and experiences of how justice has not always been blind to race, color, nationality, or creed in the courts of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce Buz Eisenberg.
Hi, everybody. Sorry I just dressed like a lawyer on a sunny Saturday. Didn't know how to dress. So when in doubt. Oh, I just realized this. In fact, I had written some notes in it. Our April Fool's snowstorm. It's the wrong date. But thank you, Louise. Thank you all. Just a quick look around, familiar faces, and here we are, all on the same page, I think. So this is not a situation where I have to convince people of the need for us to upgrade our awareness and sensitivity to issues surrounding race in this country. Yes, speak up. I can do that.
You want a microphone?
I don't think. Do I need a microphone? Nah. I'm sorry. I was lathering. I think I'm speaking to colleagues here who already understand the need for us to be aware of the things that we're talking about this morning. And thank you, Racial Justice Rising, for even existing. And thank you to you who are participants in it and can make this series possible. I first want to ask a question. Should we, this can be a conversation because we're not that great a number. And we can talk as we go along. If people want to raise their hand and talk as we go along, or you want me to speak and then reserve comments and questions and reflections for after. Which do we prefer? Mix it up. So if you have something to contribute, please do. A conversation always works for me as well when I'm speaking. When Louise first, and thank you for those nice words. Louise, first, she said she wanted me to speak about my experiences. So I'm going to do that in part. I was on a panel last week. I loved seeing these young students from Holyoke High. Last week, Charlemont Academy put on an all-day conference on race and the law and asked me to be on the panel. And I saw these incredible young teenage activists who are doing what you're doing on a Saturday morning, which is prioritizing these issues such that they were giving up on Saturday. That's got to warm your cockles. That's got to give us hope when we see young people actually getting engaged to that extent. And I learned something. Because what they wanted to hear me talk about is, when they first invited me, is reform measures, court reform, and law enforcement reforms, and correctional reforms, and things within the criminal justice system that need to be remedied, and supporting measures that remedy them. But in fact, when I listened to the other speakers on the panel, I was reminded of what really is going on here. We have a cultural, social, civil war raging in our country. Certainly in issues involving people of color, but more importantly, parties of color, red and blue. Every single morning, I'm sure like me, hey, for 46 years, I'm the dutiful husband. I go downstairs, I make the coffee, and I bring it up so my wife and I could lie in bed. And since I'm an insomniac, I've been watching the news or reading the news on my computer for a few hours, and I share with her what I've just learned about. This morning we talked about future President Kushner and his latest. Isn't that a nightmare? I had it at like 4:30 in the morning. I thought, oh my God, I see the writing on the wall. This guy, if he isn't in jail, he may, he's got the resources. But it's like, now we're engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation can endure, right? I mean, people in the red belly of the United States just see the world differently. And they see the world differently because they, like all of us, are products of their own experience. When we speak about your experiences, my experiences shape who I am. Each of our experiences shape who we are. And when I reflected on those experiences, I know you were talking about Guantanamo and clemency and death row. But what the experience that I first think of was being an 11th grader in Atlanta, Georgia, where I was raised. And in 1966, in my 11th grade year, we first integrated. Brown versus Board of Ed happened in 1954. It took us a dozen years. And in Lakeside High, we finally brought in 2 black females, 2 black males, and the entire universe was shaken in Lakeside High School in DeKalb County, just outside of Atlanta. And I was a wrestler. Believe it or not, I wrestled at 122 pounds. I think this leg is now 122 pounds. But that was my weight class, 122 pounds. And one of the 4 kids who, unfortunate kids who were brought into this cold, austere atmosphere where the seas parted when they walked down the hallways, these lonely young teenagers. And there was the first day of wrestling practice. And what Coach Wise had us do every year is pair up for the entire year. And he liked us not to be in the same weight class so that we would learn to wrestle. The bigger, stronger kids would learn more agility because they were wrestling smaller, faster kids, and the smaller, faster kids would learn more strength because they were wrestling stronger people. So when he paired off, all the friends who had been wrestling together since junior high school paired off, and there was Jack, this new unfortunate kid who was lonely and nobody wanted to wrestle with him. And before that, we had actually talked about that moment, who's going to wrestle with him, and dreadful things were said. Dreadful things were said. One of the comments that I remember is, I don't want to put my face in the armpit of some N-word, right? There I was, one of 4 Jews in the high school, right? So don't ask me why. I think it wasn't like some political statement that I wanted to make. It wasn't some magnanimous thing. I think my mother was kind and didn't like people to not be sensitive to people. So I wrestled with Jack and for 2.5 months, during which he beat the crap out of me every single time. And he did. And we never became like social friends, but we wrestled together. The coach would say, time to do a chicken wing, and he'd teach us how to do a chicken wing, and then we were wrestling together, and he was always better and stronger than I was, but we smiled rarely. He was standoffish. I didn't understand it until I really realized how pernicious the atmosphere was, how lonely he felt. It was only because I was wrestling with him every afternoon that I came to understand. To me, that was maybe the most formative experience in race relations of my life, because figured out that putting my face in his armpit was no different than any other armpit I was going to put it in, and it just resonated for me that he was a victim of the pigment color of his skin and nothing more. That's the experience that I think launches today, because I never forgot the lessons that I'm forever grateful to Jack for the lessons that he taught me. All we were just two different people with such experience. In terms of what I was preparing, what I prepared for on April 1st is to break down criminal justice system, so that we can talk about the experiences that I've had and the experiences that exist in this country. Beginning, people might prefer to listen to the baby than me, Sarah. Don't worry, it is not an interruption. We grandparents love babies. Maybe more than when we were parents. But, so I broke it down into the investigatory stop, the arrest, the decision whether or not to prosecute, prosecutorial discretion, the trial and the verdict, the punishment that is administered as a sanction, and then the conditions of confinement. I just smiled. I didn't plan to tell you this story, but I want to tell you about an investigatory stop that happened just because I love this story. Young, 19-year-old, this is a long time ago, mid-80s. Yikes. 30-something years ago. Young African-American driving on Route 2 through Irving. And he stopped by an Irving police officer, I think, or maybe it was a Guild police officer, but he stopped by a police officer. Now, this young man had been smoking a joint. But that isn't why he was stopped. He was stopped because of the color of his skin. The police officer had no clue that he had been smoking a joint. But the cab of his car smelled of marijuana. And this brilliant young man, police officer, comes to the driver's side and through the rolled up window in, I think it was this time of year actually, I think it was May. I remember the case and you'll see why in a minute. Because the police officer says license and registration, and the kid, he knew not to reach for anything until the police officer was watching. He then pulled his registration out of his glove compartment. He then pulled his driver's license out of his wallet, moving very slowly, and he took both, and he cracked the window by about a 1/16 of an inch, and slid them through the window. At which point the officer said, "Roll down your window." And he said, "No, you can get them." And he said, "No, you have to roll down your window and hand it to me." And he said, "Why?" And the police officer, this is a 19-year-old, police officer said, "Because I have to read them completely front and back." And he said, "Okay." And he pressed them both against the window like this. Rather, because he knew as soon as that smell was there, he was sunk, right? And then he said, "I'm going to have to see the back too." And he turned them around to read it. Of course, the police officer wanted none of this, opened the door, and sounds like from the groans, you know the end of the story. We brought it before the judge, Judge Kramer at the time, in Orange District Court. I came fully briefed that it was an unlawful search, that he had every ability to get the license and registration, and that was it. And we actually got the stop invalidated and won. But I always remember that kid holding it up like this. Go ahead, read. I'll hold it as long as you want. But that's just a funny story that I just thought of. That really, maybe it's making brevity out of what we shouldn't be making brevity from. When I think about the investigative stop, and when you think of the investigative stop, you probably remember when driving while black, DWB was first coined as a phrase. It came out of the New Jersey Turnpike cases, right? And the first time that we really heard it used was Charles Barkley, a professional basketball player, who was stopped, and his lawyer coined driving while black. I'd just like to share two stories. One of them is in 1988. A New Jersey state trooper pulls over a Porsche driven by a young African-American male. He pulls him over and claims that he was speeding. The young man says, I wasn't speeding. And do you have the radar going? I don't see any radar. He didn't have radar in the cruiser. But he nevertheless stopped the person, said that he made furtive movements, made the young man get out of his car, and he found a weapon under the passenger's side. He arrested him, cuffed him, arrested him, charged him, and eventually that too was invalidated because there wasn't probable cause to search the vehicle, right? The criminal justice system had a protection that the man availed himself of. Flash forward 25 years ago, you may have heard, I think it was last year, about a young African-American who went into Barney's, that high-end department store in New York City, where he purchases a $350 designer belt. The clerk asks for identification. He provides identification. He uses his personal debit card to pay the $350. He walks outside of Barney's, and a half a block later, he's stopped by a police officer. She suspected that the identification, the clerk at Barney's, called the police, thinking that it must be somebody else's debit card to pay for a $350 belt, and it must be fake ID. Police officer suspects it's fake ID, arrests the man until it's all cleared up, and in fact, it was front page, I don't know, this gentleman seems to remember, it was a very big deal. I talk about that because therein lies my thesis. This is what I want to ask you. Which is the dog and which is the tail that wags? Is it court reform? Is it institutional racism that we have to attack by further reforms, by further regulation, by laws to protect, by changing sentencing schemes? Is it the juridical problem that we, who have already consumed the Kool-Aid, need to be attacking? Or is it the culture? Is our activism best aimed at understanding that pigmentation doesn't really matter, that we're all different one way or another, that we have to learn to accept each other's differences, that we all are products of our own experience? That, I think, for people who are progressive, people that see the world through the lens that I suspect everyone here sees the world through, and I know that there's a lot of activists here. I know that I'm preaching to the choir. But and my contention is that people like me, we're the Band-Aid. We can sort of use our law license and to do what we can do to affect change, and that our legislators can do what they can do to affect change. It's not unimportant. It's actually critically important. But really, how do we bridge this civil war? How do we? I see Kate Stevens here, the wonderful Kate Stevens, who just retired from her profession in order to work on the others, which is to study racism at its roots and try to figure out how best to bridge the divide between those who are sensitive to these issues and those who ignore these issues. Yes, Kate?
I don't think it has to be an either-or. In fact, I think it shouldn't be an either-or, because remedies are always going to be important, as well as the cultural changes that need to happen undoing institutional racism. But I don't think setting it up as a dichotomy is necessary or useful.
I agreed with you up until the last clause.
Necessary and useful?
Yeah, because I think what made that clerk call the police and suspected that young man must have had a stolen. I mean, what makes the officer see a black 19-year-old in a Porsche and make assumptions? You know, that's where it starts. It starts with an investigatory stop. Everything that we hear about arrest-related deaths. Is George here? Hey, George. Oh, you're multitasking here. You're two hands. Two hands. George Aguiar has agreed to help me out here. Looks like the third tab, arrest-related. It's in the middle. I just wanted to show you this tab, maybe you should slide down a little bit. Well, the FBI, Department of Justice has a Federal Bureau of Investigation that works under its auspices, much in the news. Lately, the FBI chartered the Bureau of Justice Statistics, which keeps track of the kinds of things we're talking about today. And you can see here that between, slide up a little bit, George. Oh, here it is. That you can see that through 2003 and 2009, there were a total, take a deep breath, 4,813 arrest-related deaths in that 6-year period, maybe 7-year period, 2003 to 2009. You can see that 61.5% were a homicide, taking of a human life, either by choking, as we saw in Staten Island, or by usually a gunshot by a police officer. According to the BJS, 11% were suicides. We saw that poor young woman in Texas killed herself after being incarcerated for 3 days. You could see, I never really understood this. I read about it. Still don't understand intoxication being 11% of it. I guess it's alcohol poisoning. I don't know. And then, of course, we all cynically ask, what does accidental mean? Just under 6%. Natural causes, 5%. And unknown, 5.7. Slide up a little more, George. There's another graph underneath this. You can see here the breakdown by gender. I think that says 95. That's what it says. I can't see it. It's 95 or 96% male. Yeah. And then by race, 42% white, 31% or 32% black, 20% Hispanic. U.S. population. Here we go. This is according to the Census Bureau from 2015, the mid-decennial census that they run. Non-Hispanic whites are about 68.8%. Non-Hispanic blacks are down from 16% of the population, 16.2 to 12.2% of the population, while Hispanic or Latino are up to 16.3%, up over the last 22 years from 9% of the population. It's almost doubled Hispanic. So the disproportionate number of blacks, it's almost 3 times, well, 2.5 times the pro-rate number of people in the population who are African American, and you look at the number of blacks who die in an arrest-related event, you know, it's 2.5 times the number. For Hispanics, it's a little bit more than proportionate, because it's 16.2%. Well, this is 2003 to 2009, 19%. So back then, it's probably like 1.5 times the relevant number. It's really interesting to look at these boring charts, because inevitably you're going to see a disconnect in the extent to which African American people of color comprise a portion of the population, and the disproportionate figures and statistics with respect to bad things happening to them, whether it's arrest, whether it's being charged, whether it's being sent to jail. I'm not going to bore you too much with those statistics, although I want to a little. I want to just give you a little, I recently retired. Yes, please.
Well, I just wanted to add that not only are blacks and Latinos overrepresented in these deaths, but you can't discount the fact that whites are underrepresented, and that is an important factor in this.
Yeah, white privilege is
Yes.
the elephant in the room, right? You're right. I'm not. That's why I dress like this, so I wouldn't get stopped on the way in. But it's true. The likelihood of this happening to me, you know, a white, bald male, is not great.
I just want to put one more comment
Please.
if I can, is that I'm sitting here and I'm also thinking about the mental abilities. Like, this doesn't count for people that get arrested who have mental health, real mental health issues.
Right.
And it would be, as I'm looking at the number of whites, and I think, you know, that what proportion of these people are people with real mental health issues that are untreated.
Yeah, and I think when Kate talks about eloquently about the others, that's certainly a group within the others, but it's also our experience that people are raised to respect law enforcement, are going to act differently if they're stopped than people who are afraid of law enforcement and feel imperiled. It's not just mental health, but it's an emotional instability that comes through life experiences, right?
Yeah.
And that's a really good point. It's not just looking at race. There's a lot of other experiences. Yes, Mel.
I was just wondering, there's my understanding that not all police departments report. There's just, so, right, how does that, how many do, what percentage do?
We're about to get in the weeds, right? So it's different. So here's how it works. And those of you who've been working on sanctuary, if you've been familiar with the notion that the federal government may wish to deny grants to communities that refuse to cooperate with ICE enforcement, right? That question and the Solomon Amendment thing, if you forget it, because I'll get too deeply into the weeds. But in fact, this chart, Bureau of Justice Statistics and the FBI, we're just going to help you with the FBI in a moment. They dangle grants, which they can voluntarily or not give to local communities, based on their willingness to cooperate with this type of data collection, right? So this is from law enforcement, right? But if law enforcement, it may refuse a small Leiden. Anybody from Leiden? I don't think that they even have a full-time chief, so they have part-time officers. They don't have the ability to report to the Bureau of Justice Statistics everything that happens in Leiden. But by not doing so, they may deprive themselves of the right to apply for a grant to get new radio transmitters or a cruiser bar or something like that. So that's how they, through a series of inducements, they get people.
Is there a large number though that does report?
Depends on, I don't know about this statistic, but I can, if George would help me again. I think I'm going to do just a very, am I boring anyone?
No.
No.
This is a little tutorial. Poor Sarah took classes with me. She's now doing something far more important. She's tending to a beautiful child. But, so she has suffered this sort of thing from me in class. If you could look at the FBI home. Oh, you have the, okay. I'm going to show you how to do this. Right? FBI.gov. Easy, right? You can go to FBI.gov, and here in the search, up here, George, if you could put CIUS, Crime in the United States. And we're going to go to 2015 here. Yep. And we're going to hit search for that. Oh, you're already there. See what we compiled fully from law enforcement. Who asked the question earlier? From law enforcement. And here, Crime in the United States 2015. Let's go there. You can do this yourself. These are the uniform crime reports. When you see every fall a report that homicide has gone up in Chicago or the latest crime statistics in the United States, it's from here. If you could slide up a little bit. And just choose any of them. Go to violent crime here, and we'll get to the tables. The new Trump budget. Everybody is talking about the fact that in the $4.1 trillion budget, which has been submitted to the House, that there is a $59 billion increase, a 10% increase in military budget. What we're not talking about is that there's a 17% increase in law enforcement budget. All right? That's pretty huge. If you could roll on this Table 1 right there, George. Before you talk, how many people think crime has risen in the United States since 1992? Raise your hand. How many think crime has gone down? Well, you're all smart. We had a population back, this is only going back to 96. We had a population of 265 million. If you scroll down to 2015, George, you'll see that we're now up to 325 million according to the Census Bureau, beginning of 2017. And as I said, they won't have those statistics for another 4 months or something. If you slide up again, George, you could look at the 8 what we call index crimes. This is the overall violent crime rate, murder and non-negligent manslaughter, the rape with a revised definition. It used to be that you couldn't rape a man according to the FBI. Now you can rape a male. And if you slide over, George, you can see robbery, aggravated assault. These are the violent crimes. Then we have theft, motor vehicle, etc., etc. These are the rates. If you take the number of 265 million and you look at the number of bodies, then it was 19,000. In 1992, it was 25,000. Bodies are pretty good counting, right? There's an occasional Jimmy Hoffa, but mostly we know when there's a body. The rate here was 7.4. If you go back to 1992, which I'm not going to suffer you, it was 9.6 per 100,000. It says up in the corner there, per 100,000. So, George, if you slide down to 2015, it went from 9.6 to 4.9. It halved. And if you look at every one of these statistics, here's 28.1 enforceable rape. Can you go back up, George? You're great, thank you. 36.3. And the same is true with robbery. This is the FBI. So law enforcement, Mel, has been induced to provide, we call it cleared crimes. Crimes that have been cleared. To law enforcement, they report so that they're eligible for those grants. And they said there's 98,000 law enforcement entities, not all police. Some are the Leeds Veteran Hospital Security or GCC Security Force, right? They report as well to one of these. Here's the bottom line. Violent crime has reduced 41% since 1992. Property crime has reduced 38% overall since 1992. And if you want to check it out, go to FBI.gov, put in CIUS, crime in the United States, put in the years you want to look at, in this case 2015, and you can look through the tables. If you slide all the way down, George, all the way down to the bottom of the page, keep going. There you go. So here you can see trends. Because of those 7 cities with gang-related deaths that are plaguing those cities, Chicago being the most notable, you can see that the murder and non-negligent manslaughter has gone up 11% from 2015 to 2014. I think that they had 200 plus as opposed to 170 plus. And then you can compare it for 5 years, and you can compare it. There it went down 9% from 2006, notwithstanding the jump in the last few years it's down. But if you go and you look at rape, etc., you can see we're upwardly trending just now, and that's something that a lot of criminologists are asking about in the most violent rape, manslaughter. But in most of them, even in this 10-year period, we're down 27% in robberies in the United States. And the administration wants to give 17% more money to law enforcement. Not all law enforcement. Like drug treatment, there they want to reduce by 14% for people in the criminal justice system. The Burn Justice Assistance Grants, the one that they give more money for community policing so that trust can be built between the community and the police. They're proposing a 22% cut. Project Safe Neighborhoods, community-oriented police services, violence against women. Cut. Militaristic kinds of equipment that police officers have. Cutting down on accountability for police officers who shoot someone in the course of an arrest. More money for those kinds of things. Right? Tanks. There's where state criminal alien assistance program to eliminate $210 million of the $260 million that is funded with this year. I could go on and on and on. Of course, the proposal that sanctuary cities be punished by removing all grants. So your question, Mel, is a good question. And the answer is this administration wants to withhold grants from anybody who doesn't do anything other than promote police violence against people. So I just wanted to introduce you to this and to dispel the notion. You're great. You want to go back to your videography? And you, sir, wanted to speak. Please. Sure. I'll listen.
Everybody, my name is Betty Johnson.
Hi.
I just want to say, what he was saying is good to know for white people, but black people, I can't speak for all black people, but I can speak for myself and for the ones that are around me. We already know about the statistics, what's going to be happening. Otherwise, we won't be able to live like we're living. A lot of people ask, when you go to the doctor, say, well, how come black people always got a high blood pressure? So that's the reason right there. We already know. We live through it. What I'm going to be a part of this, and I'm going to say to you, most people here, is that this is my second time here. And what you need to do is, he was saying, I think he was trying to find out what we could do to make it better.
I'm heading there, yeah.
So what you need to do is you need to take action and don't be silent. Well, you could make noise, like on your papers, you say, come and bring your signs. Well, I've been having a problem with my wife's sisters locked up in one of these homes, and she can't talk Spanish, so native language to her sister on the phone. They hang up. I'm accused of a crime that's not even documented. Accused of rape. And I got no police record. Nobody put it down on paper. The Hampshire Department of Hampshire Development Services in Northampton. I said, well, what am I accused of? Show it to me on paper. They said, well, you know. And I said, well, what is it? They won't write it down. I went to the DA. I got no record of being nobody. The girl that's supposed to be raped, it ain't me. And the girl that accused me of it wrote a paper, got it notarized, and said it wasn't me. And the guy that did rape her got locked up, and he's dead now. Somebody shot him. He was in the gang. So what I want to say to you is, like my story about that. When somebody black come and tell you they got a problem, and I go to these lawyers, I went to a lawyer, I took $1,000 to take the case. It's a guarantee case. If I knew how to do the paperwork, I never finished school. I could win this case 3 ways. But what I'm saying is, I couldn't get nobody to take the case. Why? Because all of them work together. Most of the lawyers are, what are they called? They're called a guardian. So they don't want to go against each other. I asked the Human Rights Commission to help me, and she said, Benny, it's not right. It's not a legal case. But then her conscience started bothering her, and 2 weeks later she called me up and she said, you're right, Benny, but I can't do nothing like this. I'll lose my job. So she gave me the main person in Boston to call. He said he would call me back in a week. He never did call me back. So what I'm
Have you
saying
actually
to you
been
is,
charged, Ben?
pardon me?
Have you actually been charged in court?
Charged with nobody. No court, no paperwork, no nothing.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I got nobody's, no police, no. And I went to the DA and I said, am I charged with anything? They said no. I said, well, the person that goes in, what did she says? She never said it was you, Benny. She said we interviewed her, and another organization interviewed her, and nothing, she never mentioned you. And I said, well, why is everybody in my house, if my wife Margarita there is talking to her sister, and I'm talking to you, and they'll say, but if I hear Benny's voice, we'll hang up the phone. I can't even talk to somebody in my house. I got it written down. I'm gonna leave some paperwork so when y'all get ready to go, you can call me. But what I'm saying is y'all come to these meetings, and it's just like a broken record. And I know you mean well, but you do nothing. Nobody called me last time. Nobody called my wife. Nobody did anything to help me. But you come to these meetings, and you come here and you feel good about statistics. We all know the statistics. We know when Trump got elected what the statistics was going to be. So, what I'm saying to you all people here, stop being silent and just don't, and even if you be loud, do something. You do nothing but talk. You, in this case right here, the crowd that we got right now, if I was to take them down to the Hampshire, to that place that's doing this to us, they would stop it. But no, you don't do that. You just want to just come and have meetings. That's no good. You got to do action. You got to have a strategy. And strategy means going out and let these people see bodies and let them see you in their place. They are afraid of that. They don't want the news. They don't want bad publicity. So that's what I want to say. And,
I appreciate it. So, Benny, you have somebody, you have heard that she accused you, even though the DA said she didn't accuse you?
yes, the DA said she didn't accuse
And so
me.
what makes you, how do you know that she accused you? Did you get some
No,
statement from
My
somebody?
wife's sister didn't like me because I'm black. See, a lot of Puerto Ricans don't understand that. They don't understand racism and racism and well, it's another word for that. No, not racism.
So somebody actually said that this woman accused you?
My wife's sister,
Claimed that you had raped this woman?
yes, but never wrote it down. No police report, no nothing.
Yes.
So, and a lot of Puerto Ricans don't know they're black. They don't know that, I forgot the word today, but Puerto Rican is not a race. It's a black and white race. And, well, Latino race, but
Ethnicity is that
if you're black, you're black. Like my wife right there, she's Puerto Rican, but she's black. And one Puerto Rican lady, blacker than me, I said, Robles, you're black Puerto Rican? She goes, no, I'm Spanish. She doesn't understand that, you know, the difference between race and nationality. She didn't understand it. So all I'm saying is I've been here and I asked for help. I left my paperwork and stuff, and I would appreciate it. But I'm saying if y'all really want to help people of color, you gotta come out and you gotta have a strategy, and you gotta come out and meet the enemy that's doing these things. Another thing that you gotta do too is, I brought up the conversation of how doctors treat Puerto Ricans and black people of color, and poor whites too. The doctors are outrageous the way they treat most Puerto Rican people of color. Can't get medicine like most white people do. They don't get treated, but yet still the doctor gets paid. I had one doctor that didn't give me no medicine. I picked his off and got my money back. But I'm saying they get paid and they get this insurance money and they tell you goodbye and they send you here, send you there. And another thing is you got to know. I want you to know. The reason why a lot of people are on these drugs is the doctors got them on it. What they do is they give you medicine for pain, and they know 6 months, 3 months, 4 months, or whatever it is, they're going to tell you, oh, I can't give you any more medicine now. But now they don't hook you. So people like you believe that these people are doing this on their own. No, it's the doctors doing that.
Thank you so much for
Yeah,
telling us all
okay.
of this.
All right.
I hope someday you can come to one of our smaller meetings.
I don't want
and
to just
tell us
come to
how
a
we
meeting.
can
I
help
want y'all to come to me. You said on your papers there, you apologize for racism, and you want to do something about it. So if you really want to do something about it, you come to me.
Okay.
I'm the one need help.
Okay.
I'm gonna leave some paperwork, my address and phone number.
Good.
Please call me. You can call me. I stay up all night. 1 o'clock at night.
We'll do it in the middle of the night, I
Yeah,
promise.
you can call me anytime. All right.
Thank you very much.
I guess,
Okay.
and I guess this young lady here would like to say something.
Please, can I?
Julia?
No, I'm called Jada.
Jada, I couldn't see.
But that's okay. But my name is Joella Tarba in Springfield. But I'm so compelled to listening to him, so I wanted to get up here. First of all, I have to apologize for being late. And I know Tigre and I are like combined at the hip in our political organization. My story is a little different, but very, very similar. And I just felt compelled to speak. And I actually have something directed. I'd like to say I've been doing political work for so long. I'm originally from Texas. For the last 20 plus years, I've been performing. I've been performing as Ida B. Wells Barnett. Ida B. Wells Barnett was born a slave, and 50 years before Rosa Parks got kicked off the bus, breaking the law. My character got thrown off the train a year before Gandhi got kicked off the train in South Africa, before the laws were separate. So I've been an activist. Just give you a little bit more, and I'm telling you, this is how connected we are. And I live in Northampton, so it's interesting, no matter what our race and class and all that, how connected he and our situation is. So I'm coming here, and I purposely came here. I would have came in that snowstorm for you, and I'm asking for help as he's asking for help. And I got some directives of how we can help. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my situation, and Tigre knows about this too, and thank goodness for her. And this is how I know about you. Doing all this, I'm an educator, actress, substance abuse counselor. I do all the political stuff that I can. And that music is going to have me start dancing in a minute with the phone. But I live in progressive Northampton. And Northampton, in my mind, has always been considered progressive. That's where I got started. 20-something years ago, when I saw Francis Crowe standing up against a store that had grapes, and I assume those grapes from California, that really got me. Because growing up in Texas that I saw all kinds of stuff. I even saw the Klan come in my neighborhood when I was in the 6th grade. That's how explosive that I grew up. So for me, Northampton was like a political haven for me. But lately, things have changed really badly. And what's happened to me politically is that I live in a subsidized housing now. And I have seen more racism and stuff there that have got me not knowing what decade I'm in and what region that I'm in. It has really gotten bad. Just most recently, I was charged with assault and battery on a felony that I was, in my life, that I have devoted. I saw Cesar Chavez a week before he died. I spent time in Nicaragua. I mean, my life, I taught in the school in Springfield between 2 games. My life has been devoted to political and social change in my life. So this, and the people who did it were these, before Trump got here, were these Trump kind of people, when I was in the building advocating for tenants' rights. And they said enough of civil rights, and they were picking on me. I filed a case with MCDA from the stuff that they were talking, MCAD, myself without the lawyer. I have 2 bachelor's degree and a doctorate level degree, 1 degree from Dartmouth College. And so this is the stuff that I have been going through myself. So it is going across color, class, levels, what I've been going through in progressive Northampton. And I found it not to be progressive. So actually I was coming here to say, I would prefer if your class could come take my situation, what I've been going through, because you would have think that I would have been in pre-1950s in the South, what I've been going through. And I have a witness here who's been going through it, who can attest to everything I've been going through, and I have meticulous records of what I've been going through. And I'm an activist. I have witnessed to some of the stuff that I've been going through in progressive Northampton. I've been going to the mayor, excuse me, people, going to people doing this, what I've been going through myself. That I've had the same people who said I assaulted and battered them, assaulted me. I had an accident, I was on the cane, assaulted me. Because I went to MCDA. Because I went into a meeting once, because it wasn't even a race issue. The building hadn't been recycling bottles over 10 years. Northampton, progressive Northampton, when you see bicycle people, pedal people, the building of 200 people hadn't been recycling for 10 years, which was against the city ordinance. And I went to go recycle, and they said, this one woman, white woman said, oh, we don't recycle it because the Hispanics are dirty and nasty, and they don't mind roaches. And I thought, what? Because I was growing up, I heard that about black people. And it hit me in my stomach. See, because I see black people, Latino people, we're all people of color. Poor white people, I grew up with that. And I said, ma'am, I had worked as head resident in Mount Holyoke, and we've just done a thing on recycling. So I said, it's an issue of education, not about ethnicity. And she said, oh, I know them. I've been married to one. And they're dirty, and they're nasty, and they're nothing but drug addicts. And I was like, what? And I went out saying, oh my goodness, we need some help. So the same training that I went through, I went to go get help with MCAD, get help because we just had, I don't know if you've seen the paper, we just had a new director and we had all these problems. So I said, we need to get some education in here. All the white people turned against me. They wouldn't get in the elevator with me. They had to get me out of there. They attacked me physically. And I was documenting everything. So all the way, that's what I've been going through. And I was like, where, what am I going through? What? And anyone talked to me, she with her dog, they were like, you don't want to talk to her? So I got charged at a meeting where somebody was sick with a heart attack, and I wanted them to sign the card. They took my card. They wouldn't give it back to me. And then I got charged. I said, you can have the card. So then they said when I hit my hand that I assaulted them. So, yeah. But they finally dismissed the charge because I'm going to go teach in China for a year. So they dismissed it. But I've been going through that. So when you're talking about the statistics, and these are the people, Trump-loving, whatever kind of people, this is what I've been going through. And where was the administration in the housing? And I've been touring a one-woman show on Ida B. Wells who fought through this. And I'm like, am I living this? I'm going through it. She went through this. I'm going through it. Thank goodness I had T-Gray to go to. I was like, pinch me, but not so hard. But this is what I've been going through. So I've had my support because I've been going through them. But this is one incident in progressive Northampton. Anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't need to get up and speak. I came here to listen. But you can have your class come in. You can workshop this with your class. I'd be more than happy to do it. I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, I didn't mean to speak, but when he spoke, it resonated.
I am so done with statistics. We're all products of our experience, and those are two powerful perspectives that we just shared with us. Where do I want to go now? I mean, I can tell you stories that reinforce what Jada just said and what Benny feels is behind this accusation that has stained his reputation in his life. But
You want to take questions first?
you want to do that? Sure, let's break it up. Take questions.
My question to you is, when the police pull people over, ruffle them up, kill them, whatever, they feel they're doing their job. I'm doing my job, they're resisting me, I have to do that. Who's telling them to do that? Where are they getting these orders from? Who's writing this stuff out? When you pull them over, you drag them out of the car, you get them out of down. They gotta get on their hands and knees, they gotta, and then the person doesn't want to be on their hands and knees because they haven't done anything to resist and get arrested and they die. What upper levels are some of these orders?
Everybody heard the question? Yeah, so here in Massachusetts, if you want to be a full-time police officer, you have to go to the police academy. And it used to be different, but since the 90s, it has been safety first. You have to protect yourself first as a police officer. So the training all involves of all the priorities, the first one is officer safety. That's how they're trained. And that's why we hear about a female police officer last week who was exonerated by a jury when she thought that the man was reaching for a gun, or all these stories that we hear, every once in a while we hear the right result.
Fear for their life.
They fear for their life, and that's what they claim, and officer safety. The answer to your question is police training focuses on that, and the very first thing you should do is make sure that your safety is ensured. The second thing is to secure. So the security thing is get the guy on the ground, whoever it is, spread eagle on the ground, they can't do anything, get them cuffed, and now you've secured safety for everybody else, and then things fly from there. Yes, Benny?
I had proposed, I gave a party for the council last August, and I had them to come, but they always come on TV with all the decorations and stuff. But what I propose is, if they violate somebody's civil rights, keep them in their pocket. The captain, who's in charge of that police department, and that cop, their pension. If they violate somebody's civil rights, they should, that should be taken away from them. People like you should work on that kind of thing to stop them from doing it.
People like me do work on that kind of thing.
Well,
So I
I
can
never
tell you.
heard that though. I never heard of it.
Yeah, I'm not being defensive. If I told you about civil rights cases that I brought against police, against institutional racism,
Oh, I'm aware that
that-
you do it. It wasn't no personal attack on you. I'm just
I wasn't
saying.
thinking of that.
I'm talking about in general.
No, I know. I know. So what happens if you bring a case like that? You have a jury. And the jury has been selected. Because we have jury selection rights according to the Constitution. And inevitably, in regions like this, where we have small populations of people of color and large Caucasian populations, there is the thing that we talked about at the very beginning, when Kate offered her view, which is we have people are products of their experience, and they have distrust and mistrust, and we end up getting juries that sometimes give
We
the
need
wrong
cops.
verdict.
I'm not saying we don't need cops. We need cops. And there are people just like us. We just gotta get rid of the bad ones and make them pay when they do wrong.
Right, and I think nobody's going to disagree with that. And the question is, how do we get rid of the bad?
Have you gotten any cases with the cops because they're afraid for their lives?
Yeah. Yeah, well,
That's all they say now. I'm afraid for my life.
3 years ago, I'm not going to mention the name because it's just so unfair to him, but a very prominent sports writer I represented who had his hands up, I got a private investigator to find 11 witnesses, his hands were up, cop said his hands weren't up, slammed him down on the trunk, claimed that he had committed violence against his wife said no, he didn't. 6-year-old son watched him get slammed. It was a very prominent, nationally discussed case, and finally got the case dismissed because we had 11 witnesses saying his hands weren't where the cops, where the troopers. said
One
that
more
his-
question right quick. Can you help me with my case? Let me send me someone that.
What your problem is, I don't do, and that's part of the problem. Because what we do, our license is not to take care of it.
No, can you give me
Excuse me.
someone who can help me?
Here's the problem, Ben. This is a difficult discussion to have in this forum, right? But the problem is, I'm licensed, once you're charged with a crime, that's when lawyers come in.
I'm not
Right.
sorry for the crime.
Exactly. So that we're impotent to take care of the problem that you have with your sister-in-law and, yeah, an allegation that not even the DA believes. So the stain on your reputation and the hardship that you're going through right now, that's not what I can help you with. I'm no better at that than you are. The stuff that I'm better at
You are
is,
better than me. You got it right here, what you talking about?
well, the
I
stuff that,
just heard your record when you was introduced. You should be, you have a lot of influence, and this is why I came up and said what I said.
I don't
People
think,
like you
I don't
is
think
the
that you're,
ones that should be able to help people like me and my wife.
well, I don't think that your sister-in-law, I don't think I have much influence with her, number one. But number two, I do use the skills that I have to the extent that I can, and they involve people who are charged, or people who are held in places like Guantanamo, or people who are the victims of mass incarceration largely because of their color, and got 24-year sentences for $200 worth of crack cocaine.
Sound like
That's
Uncle
where-
Wesley.
That's where I really focus.
He helps the people over in Africa, and need people over here need help. I'm telling you, I need help here.
I understand, but, so,
You
yeah,
don't know
that's-
nobody can help me?
Benny, it's possible that mediation might help your family and community situation, and it's something that's available. There's a mediation office in Greenfield.
But who?
To have somebody who's neutral, to have a conversation with people involved and try and clear things up.
Miss, I want to tell you this, the lady who I tried to help that looked at me and laughed and said, I don't like Benny. He's too radical. And she said, we're going to keep things just as they are. And I did nothing. So if that won't work, that is too weak of a thing to do. This is what I'm trying to tell. I should tell white people because they come out with some stuff like this. You have to be able to go and protest to their office. You got to go and directly and talk to them.
But
I appreciate it.
it sounds like in this case, this is not about going to any particular office. It sounds like it's a family dynamic. And I would just say, I think what you're asking for is really important and to ask for us. But if you could wait until Buz was finished because he came to do a presentation and he has information we hear, and then maybe stay at the end and see who might talk to you about options. Is that?
I did that last time. Nobody talked to me. And I'll do that again, but it's going to be the same thing.
Well,
You see, my point is, that's my point. You don't want to go and face people. Here I am, my civil rights, her civil rights, all my civil rights were being violated in my own house. And you tell me I can't do nothing about it.
He doesn't feel like his rights are violated because he's here to speak to us. What he's saying is important, but are you friends with him?
No, I really don't. I don't
Reason why I did that, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I have to do that so y'all would understand what I'm talking about. You understand? Here's a man that got all these kind of, I never finished school or anything. By the way, I'm the guy that had to, if you go on YouTube, I had a program where rich people paid me to be poor. I got a project fixed up with $3 million. Benny Johnson on YouTube, you'll see the work my wife and I done. And we still feed homeless people. So what I'm saying is, I don't mean to put some person out on him, but I'm doing this so you can see how the system ain't working.
Get him after.
Yeah.
Can I say something?
You should get me afterwards.
Yeah, get him after. Let's get around.
Yeah, I just want to say that, no, I didn't hear anyone thinking that your situation is not important or that you don't actually need help. I hear people saying that they understand you do need help. It's just, the point is that, let's say he was trained as a doctor. He's not, but he wouldn't be the one who could help you unless you had a medical problem. And he is trained as a particular type of attorney who only handles cases after someone's convicted of a crime.
And they had my father in a nursing home.
Oh, hold on, and so your situation is very important, but Buz is not the person who's trained. There are people who can help you, but he's not the one who can because that's not what he's doing.
I won't take up y'all time, but I just want to say this. They had my father in a nursing home out in Westfield. The only way I could see him, they would call the police on me if I got somebody white. So I'm saying if I get a bunch of white people to help me, it would work for me. I'm telling you my strategy, what I know, my experience. So if Bud, by him just being white, would help me.
That may be true, it sounds like that.
I didn't get what I'm saying.
I think you're right. That's true.
It's a sad thing to say that,
Yeah.
but it's true.
That is true.
That's what y'all came here for, so I'm telling y'all that. I ain't putting no on it, I'm telling y'all straight. Well, I got a little red on me a little bit now.
No. Thank you for sharing it with us, and I don't think, I agree. What is your name?
Emma.
Emma, I agree with everything Emma said, not just the stuff about my lack of competency to intervene. I know that Betsy Corner, who recommended mediation, that's what she does, and does so well in the Franklin mediation.
Mediation who, though?
You and your sister. Well, you know what? Stay afterwards and let's talk about it. What I am trained to do, what I can do, is to use a license to practice law in the courts and places like the courts. And that's what I've chosen for my career. I'm not so good about the counseling stuff. I'm not so good about a lot of stuff. I have a very particularized training, as Emma said, and that's what I do because I'm the product of my own
I feel
experience.
good, man,
So,
I didn't say that.
no, and you're a good man too, and I appreciate that. It's just I'm not the one who could probably help in your situation. It's there's other situations, you know. Yes. Hold it first. Okay.
I'd like to go back to investigative stops for a moment, and I I'm wondering, a two-part question. The first is I'm wondering if I should simply excise the Fourth Amendment from my copy of the Constitution. And the second is, so almost every day in the Recorder we read about somebody stopped on 91 and they searched the vehicle. So those are warrantless searches. So, what rights do you have as a driver when you're pulled over? Do you have the right to say, no, you may not search my car?
So this is the know your rights question?
Well, it's,
Is it? I can answer it.
Yeah.
but, Okay. All right, so, number one, don't excise the Fourth Amendment from your copy of the Constitution. Hang on to it and use it well. So, in Massachusetts, like most states, the police are entitled to what's called a threshold inquiry, license and registration. You don't have to have a license plate missing or a taillight out. They can stop you just for what's called a threshold inquiry, right? So if you're talking about automobile searches, right? Beyond that, they need probable cause, like the smell of vegetable matter burning, like contraband that they see, They need probable cause to investigate further once they've done that. If in fact your license and registration are not in order, they have the power to seize you. The Fourth Amendment, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects. That's why it's an arrest warrant. I don't know where it's different, but arrest warrant. And they can do it without a warrant. In fact, there is probable cause to believe a law has been committed. So they have broken. So the quick answer to your question is, yes, they have a right to stop you, and they don't have a right to search beyond that. You don't have to get out of your vehicle. It may not be prudent for you to refuse because you might end up in the kind of situation you don't want to be. But,
You might get beat.
well, you might get beat. But you don't have to comply with anything unless they find probable cause. And subsequently, we look to see called suppression motions, whether or not there was probable cause for that invasion of your trunk, your glove compartment, under your seat. Probable cause sometimes can be something like a furtive movement. Thanks, Benny. So make sure that when you get stopped, that keep your hands here, so that you don't give, an impression that you might be reaching for something. That furtive movement, they often claim, is grounds for probable cause. It satisfies probable cause. So keep your hands here until they come, like that young man that I was talking about, who wisely just kept his hands where they're visible, especially at night, because then, there's a possibility that argument will be concocted that there was probable cause because of safety. Officer felt in danger.
Another thing, what if the neighborhood you're in after hours?
There's a good suggestion as well. Yes.
Just to be clear, there was no probable cause for that officer to open the car door of the gentleman who showed his registration.
There was no probable cause. The judge had to decide, is that so unusual that it was likely evidence of, which in fact it was, because there was this odor of marijuana, and I wrote a brief and argued this was good enough. He was presenting it, so the judge agreed with that. But sometimes it's a judgment call. We use precedent cases decisive cases to say this is what the law has said about that, or whatever the situation is. But there's no quick answer. I mean, I could give a long answer. The warrant requirement, there's 6 exceptions to the warrant requirement, and we could run through them one by one, and exigent circumstances, or whether there was consent searches, and I could do that, and everybody would catch up on their sleep while I'm talking, but I'm not going to. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I know there have been cases where police officers have stopped women and then raped them if they should open the car door, and I think this is the field that I work in. Anyway, what I've heard said is that you could then not get out of the car and call a police to make sure that this is truly, in fact, a real officer that stopped you. Could you not use that in any case? Like if you feel like you are being harassed, you could call and ask for another police officer to come?
I've never researched it, I don't know. It seems to me that the badge number, you have every right to ask for the name and the badge number of the officer and to write it down at the beginning of the interaction.
Yeah, that hasn't
but-
been safe for women.
Yeah, because they impersonate. There are people who are not police officers who have impersonated,
Have badges with
officers.
numbers.
and they have badges. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have an answer.
Yeah.
Um,
I know that's what they tell women to do, is to call to make sure that who is there is really who they say they are. That you might, at least put an impediment in the way of someone if they're out to really do, if they're not really genuinely, if they're out to harass you, they might, choose to do something different.
Or to not stop their vehicle until.
Your advice
someone says.
sounds like it makes sense. I don't have advice in that regard. I don't know whether or not you have a right to make a phone call to a law enforcement agency to determine telephonically whether this person is who they say that they are or not. I don't know.
Women are getting
I
raped,
suppose
I'm
if
just telling you.
somebody really has their designs on a rape, that they're probably not going to patiently wait while you make that call, but that's just my gut. I have
Just don't let them
I'm in no better position to answer that question. Boy, race. Yes, Carol.
Just wanted to respond to an earlier question, I thought it was a very good question. Earlier on the 20 minutes ago, you asked this question. and I
Can you
was
speak
thinking
louder,
about-
Carol?
I've been thinking about a question that Buzz proposed about 20 minutes ago, and the question was, what should we change? Should we change the law, or should we change our cultural attitudes? And I think that I'd like to respond to that by saying I'm more aware now of the way our law works against those people who are poor. Because many times there are simple fines that towns need to fine you in order to pay for their justice system and their police departments. So the poor are finding, the poor of all colors, are finding that they cannot even live in their town without being jailed because they can't pay the little simple fees that are being charged for whatever they're being charged with. So I think those laws certainly need to be changed, and I think that's been brought to the light by our media, which is great. The other thing, of course, is our culture really needs a lot of work. Our culture of mistrust, the idea that it's not just the Trump administration. I would say that our culture over many administrations has sown fear on purpose to each of us, has sown fear in our midst. And that has caused us not to trust our neighbors. We need to know our neighbors. We need to get to know them and work in our own towns so that we are more aware of these simple little fees and fines that are being charged. So the poor are ending up in jail for no real reason other than they're poor. And so I think it's a mix. We need to change both.
Used to run for president.
You have my vote if you do, and I will get you, Shed, but I just want to say, those are more of the boring statistics that I was going to talk about how median income for household incomes for whites are 9.8 times greater than for African Americans, the median income, and for Hispanics, they are 8.2%, times greater for whites than they are for Hispanics. And so there's been, as you all know, tons of scholarship around the question of whether it's really class or race.
It's both.
And that it's both. So the answer, like Kate answered, like you answered, with both dichotomies, race, class, culture, or institutional racism, is both. And, again, thank you, Emma, for pointing out my training is to deal with institutional racism. And so that's what I do. That's my contribution because I'm one person and that's what I'm trained to do. But I first saw, yes, there you go.
So Carol brought up
about that question you had asked earlier about, do we deal with the law or do we deal with culture? And of course we have to deal with both. And you spoke a little bit about the safety first, is that what you called it? Priority that the officers have? You know, that they have to take their own safety into account
Officer
first.
safety trumps everything else.
That safety
Hate the
trumps
word
everything
Trump.
else. But so many officers, like so many of us, have been trained by our cultures to see black people as dangerous. You know, so the Michael Brown thing, here was an overweight teenager who had stolen cigarettes or something, but what the cop claimed he saw was a ferocious beast coming at him, right? So there's some untraining that has to happen, you know, so it's great that they go to the police academy and get trained that they need to take care of their own safety before they take care of other people's safety, I guess. But they need to also be untrained in all the stereotypes that they have internalized through all their years of just living in the society they live in.
Because they're products of their own experience.
Because they're products of their own experience.
Yeah, you know, the case that I mentioned, the Barney's case, you saw
Yeah.
before, I'm just contributing to you, Shannon.
Yeah.
That right after that Barney's incident happened, the then President Obama, oh how I miss him. President Obama then told the story of the many times that he had been watched in a store, and how whenever he got into an elevator as a tall person of color, women clutched their purses, and he said a lot of those are wonderful, giving, caring people who just have been acculturated to the danger of a young man of color who happens to be 6'3" or whatever he is.
Hi, I was wondering if, you know, listening to some of the stories that people have told about racial injustices, and are there any, or could you supply us with some civil rights type lawyers that would be able to help people out? Because I think we all can empathize and sympathize with all the, you know, what's going on, but as far as us being able to do something, I don't know if we even have one. I, you know, would love to speak to one. I have like over 100 things that I could talk to them about, you know.
I was going to say me, but if you have 100 things, I don't know.
I know, if there's more than someone else other as well as you, that because there are a lot of issues that, like Benny said, you know, you suck it in and you get high blood pressure, and that's why we die early, you know. But the thing is that a lot of people just suck that in and keep it in because we don't know who to go to, and nobody can tell us, and nobody can take us. We don't have the money to pay for, you know, we get all that negative feedback, and so we have to just take it in. And in the meantime, nothing gets done, and we get sicker.
Okay, so let me try to answer the question. And you might not like the answer to the question. But first, I'm just a litigator. That is, I went to law school in the late 70s, and since 1980, I'm just a trial lawyer who decided to do a focus on civil rights. So there are 1,000 cases historically that I used to get when I was just practicing full-time. And some of them were I was not able to help with. Some of them I was able to help with, but the proof problem was beyond my ability as an attorney to. Let me say the end of the story. The best resource we have in Western Massachusetts is really the ACLU. Now, it's Bill Newman is the director of the American Civil Liberties Union, and then he has a cadre, myself included, of what we call cooperating attorneys. So over the decades, Bill has gotten a call from someone like you. He's had to screen it to see whether or not it really is the case that we'll be able to help enough with to allocate our scarce resources to. Some cases are really serious.
Oh, by the way, I've been to him.
I'm sorry, Benny. Let me.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you.
Can you tell me something down?
So in North Adams, what happened was there was one young African-American male at a bar called the Oasis, and 6 Caucasian frat boys came, and we'll never know exactly what happens if you listen to, but the black kid gets severely beaten, and the white kids claim that it's because he attacked one of the white kids, and that they beat him up to defend the white kid that he was attacking. He was smaller in stature than 5 of the 6 kids. I found great credibility, so I represented him in that case. There was a case in Orange where it was a criminal case, this one, the then district attorney, even though there were 4 white kids, 2 of them with bats that beat up a black kid and used the N-word during the beating, and they did get charged with assault with a dangerous weapon, but I claimed that they used the N-word, it was a hate crime.
Hate crime.
Which is what's called an aggravating, statutory aggravator, it ratchets it up. If I just punch Louise right now, it's a simple assault and battery. If I punch her and talk about her race or ethnicity as I'm punching her, it's a civil rights violation, it becomes a felony rather than a misdemeanor, right? So we parse the cases and we try to determine, and if Bill finds either he's going to do it or he'll farm it out to somebody like me to do civil rights. So your best friend is the American. Here, come here. There's a pen that says ACLU. This is a gift. And in the event that you think you have something, now right now Bill's under the weather, I think. Is that right, Kate? Right now he's not feeling well. But you can call, it's in Northampton, and the number is there. Hang on, Ben. Because this is an important moment for me. That civil liberties cases are those cases when a governmental entity is unduly infringing on what we call a fundamental right, First Amendment right, speech, 2 types of religion, both the Establishment Clause, it says government shall not establish a religion, Betsy DeVos, government shall not establish a religion or interfere with the free exercise of religion, and then the rights of the press, Montana guy, and then the rights of assembly for all of us who demonstrate, express our grievances in a group, right? So there are fundamental liberties, and then there are civil rights. A landlord refuses to rent to you because of your color, or, right? So what I have dedicated myself to mostly since I was in practice full time and decided to jump off that treadmill is finding those impact litigations that have a broad application, Guantanamo or mass incarceration, or right now the immigrant protection project, which we're all half a dozen lawyers, including Bill Niven. The ACLU has created an immigrant protection project, which we're working on, giving pro bono services to immigrants who are being picked up on ICE. These are kind of institutional issues, but for individualized civil rights violations, it ends up being a litigator. Most of us who are trained as litigators are trial attorneys. So sometimes the trial that we're going to be doing is a medical malpractice, and sometimes it's a civil rights violation of those of us that are trained to read the law. Whether it comes from a horse or a cow, when you step in, it feels the same.
Yeah.
And that's what we do, we litigate. So there's a whole bunch of lawyers who may be interested in a particular case, but they might not be if there's substantial proof problems or if recovery is not likely, and they have to, out of their 50-hour week, how many hours are they going to cost them for that particular case? So the best I can do is, if you really feel like you're the victim of an institutional problem, call the ACLU. If it's particularized, just find a good litigation firm. And there's lots of them. If you don't like the ones around here, then go to Northampton or Springfield, and there are good litigators who may or may not be interested in your case. I can't speak for them.
So are there few, is it like not a lot, or I was
Not a
wondering
lot
if
of
there was,
lawyers?
people that do civil rights or, social injustice things.
Good litigators
litigators.
will take on a civil rights case, but they won't. They take on so much time that they have to pick and choose which cases they're going to take. So
So do you have any type of a list that we could provide to?
I don't, but if you call any of the bar associations, Franklin,
Mhm.
Hampshire, Hamden, if you're Berkshire, Worcester, they will have a list of a referral agency kind of thing, and they will have names of lawyers who have said, she works on civil rights, he works on civil rights cases, and you can get names of the ones who put themselves down. The bar associations don't like to say go to this one, unless they have a rotation. So if they have a rotation and John Jones is next on the list, call John Jones. His number is 774, whatever. So call the Bar Association and see. I would probably go to Northampton if I were living in Franklin County because there's more of them there, right? I don't know who to call on.
I would
Thank you.
Well, I think all these people had their hands up before Ben. So yes.
I just have a question that I don't know.
Go ahead and ask your question, go, and then I'll go after you. Go ahead, please, go.
Defer to you, please.
I had a question. I know in Massachusetts, and with my situation, there's something with the law about recording stuff. A lot of the people, you mentioned the
What do you
case.
mean by recording? You're talking about tape recording?
Tape recording. In my case, the racist stuff that people would say, I couldn't record.
Right.
I
We
had
have
a
a bi-party law that says the other person has to know they're being recorded.
But in different states, it's different. See,
Right.
I felt like breaking the law, calling it the Rodney King defense. That I would have wanted to break the law, like sue, put me to jail for that, because that was the only way, because the white people in the case, they were the tenants, the leaders. I was part of the tenants association. They kicked me out because of the stuff that I said, because I went to MCAD. But the only way I could catch them doing this, because they would lie for each other. And I felt like, well, let me Rodney King this. But I had a different lawyer for my accident saying, no, you won't do that. But I mean, Rosa Parks broke the law, and the law was wrong with that. But that was the only way that I could get them to do that. So I'm thinking, I don't want to be, I had never had any problems legally at all. I want to be law abiding, but then that raised the question, when the law is wrong, how do I protect? Because they were protecting each other, just like in some of the cases that you just mentioned, when people are going to lie for each other, because they were. I was dealing with people who were acting 7th grade. I would say, I've taught 7th grade. I would say 3rd grade-ish, that they would lie, and it's called mob rule. That's what Ida B. Wells talked about. They were going to lie for each other. And, clan rule, clan enhanced it. So I would have thought, well, go ahead and arrest me, because when I called the police in Northampton, they would say, well, she's acting up. She's the troublemaker. She's the outsider. And you would think, because we have in Northampton, a lesbian chief police are there, but they would all get together, and so it would be them against me.
I can't solve the them against me, but all right, so it's funny, this is becoming a tutorial, not necessarily about race, but it's okay. Use me as you'd like. What you have a right to do is to, okay, number one, you're not going to get locked up, probably, although you can be civilly sued for violating the Massachusetts Civil Rights Act that says you have to get permission before you take somebody. That's what you meant by recording. So
Problem is, no one-
you're
no
not,
one in the page-
excuse me, you're not likely to get locked up for that, but it would be ruled inadmissible in court when you try to prove that your side of the story is true and theirs isn't, because we have a law that says you can only take somebody, both parties have to know about the tape. So not likely to be locked
Unless
up.
I forgot it was on.
So give it a whirl. Give it a whirl. I've made a career out of giving it a whirl, right? You try what you can, but I can't advise you to take people without their knowledge, because in Massachusetts there's a law against the law. But the them against me thing, I just told you about 6 frat boys who claimed that he attacked a group of 6, right? It was a credibility issue, and it was based on the credibility issue that we failed in that case, because it's not believable that one person, whatever his animus and motivation, is going to wade into 6 other people and try to win. That, especially if he's smaller in stature than 5, right? So, and the same thing is true with the 2 guys with the baseball bat. It's just incredible that they were beating him for any reason other than race when they dropped the N-word during the beating, right? So sometimes it's just you have to appeal to the trier of fact, the judge or the jury. But the jury is a product of their own experiences too. So I can tell you story after story how a jury, just disappointed me. Not as many stories as the number of stories where I was proud of the jury. It's the good news. But I can tell you some stories. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, to weigh in on a couple things. One, I happen to be Native American, so I'm kind of sad that we're not even included in your statistical stuff.
Well, actually, you are.
Yeah, but you didn't share that like as though we're not here. But I just want to say that I find it really sad because we're living in a space like 3.5 miles from here was a massive, massacre. And, look at what the laws are doing around that, the whole mascot issue. The whole culture versus law issue is really at play when you look at that issue. Like really, would the laws have to change, because the culture wouldn't change? Like really in the South, do you really think the slave owners would have voluntarily said that they would give up all their slaves without a law coming into play to make a change? And the other point I wanted to make, it starts with the laws because the doctrine of discovery, which most people don't even know about, was the thing that set all this in motion by saying that only white men and Christians could own land, with the papal bull that's still on the books and the doctrine of discovery that's still in our Constitution. Why isn't anybody addressing that pit us all against each other? All people of color and women couldn't own any land. And then now when you look at Trump and you see it rolling back to those days where they only want Christian white people to come here, with the immigration policies that they're instituting, you can see it going right back to that's unmasking the domination code right there. So why is it, like, how many people in here even know about the doctrine of discovery? and that's,
There you go. So,
yeah.
first of all, you could keep that, but you could see that I was prepared to talk about Native Americans.
Wow, I've been waiting. It was like,
Well,
She hasn't been allowed to say much.
but I was also prepared to talk about, actually, Bill Newman and I. Bill's name again. Bill Newman and I went to Sandstone, Minnesota last year, twice. I'm sorry, I'm addressing you.
Strongo.
What?
Yeah, okay.
To represent a Native American who had gotten 30 years from the time he was 18 for selling crack cocaine. He got 30 years plus possibility of parole under the sentencing guidelines. Who lived on a Wisconsin reservation and was obviously victimized by racial animus. And so it's not like I was going to talk about him, but we sort of digress. So that sounds a little defensive, but I'm saying they might be 0.2% of our population, but they're importantly disregarded. And when we talk about what Carol was talking about, this is just class or race. Class plays a huge role. If race doesn't, class comes in and sort of picks up steam to play a huge role in disproportionately mistreating Native Americans institutionally by racist attitudes. Yes, Benny.
Speaking of Bill Newman, you said you only take cases, which is good, cases that national cases. But what about people like us again? I've been to him over 10 times over the years, and he never once, all he did for me was, oh, I can't, I'm busy. He never even looked at me.
So,
and I know ain't a lot of black people in Northampton, so therefore, he's discriminating against me. That's the way I see it, because I've been to him, I never cursed, I was very polite, I did what I was supposed to do. I wrote him a memo, I did all kinds of things I was supposed to do, and he never gave me a chance.
you know what, Benny?
I should have access to that.
I'm in a really difficult position right now because I don't want to in any way suggest that what you feel isn't real or justified. I'm not trying to suggest that your feelings I'm not saying your observations aren't accurate from your perspective or that your feelings aren't justified. That's not what I'm saying. Just let me tell you this. Bill and I, in 1986 to 1991, we commuted on our own nickel to and from Georgia to represent a young black man, an 18-year-old, on death row. Once we defeated his execution by 14 hours. That case took hundreds of hours and thousands of dollars from our pocket to make sure that that man wasn't executed. I know you do. So what I'm saying is, people like Bill Newman, there's so many hours in a week. Actually, he's sick right now because he's overworked himself. Right now, as we speak. Last night he missed a meeting for this immigrant project that I'm talking about because his wife wouldn't let him out of bed. Because he went to work that day and got just sicker. He worked himself. We only have so many hours in a week, and we only have so many resources. And Bill is the last person in the world who would want to see your problem ignored. He just only has so many hours in the day to work on stuff, and he's like a 14-hour-a-day guy. He is, and I know it because I am too. So
I've been to him over the years, over 5 years, to him over 10 times, and he never once even gave me an interview.
I can't even. I have to find it out. There's so much about the United States Supreme Court I don't like. But let me tell you one thing I really understand, even in its current composition. That 9 times I've asked the Supreme Court to hear my case. Once they wrote why they were saying no, and the other 8 they just said no. And this is why. Because those 9 justices with 2 clerks each, last year they got 10,200 requests for cases, and they took 89. And the reason why is each of those cases fills out a 4-drawer filing cabinet that has to be gone through.
You can't compare your case with me, though.
Exactly. This is what I'm saying to you. Sometimes you can only do so much,
I know that.
and so, you know.
I'm not getting minimal help. I'm not getting help as a citizen in this town, this part of the town.
And I'm not.
That's how bad
Not
the
saying I
racism
don't-
is. I'm not seen as a person in the community.
Do I sound defensive? I don't want to be defensive. Kate, then Cheryl.
I think it's important to make the distinction between.
You stand up and be louder. Thank you.
I think it's important to make the distinction between the services that an attorney can provide versus an advocate in the traditional sense of advocate. Not every problem is remedied by the courts because it may not rise to the level of a civil or a criminal infraction. Sometimes it just has to do with bad service, bad treatment, but not illegal. So some situations need advocacy from people in the community, and that would be more appropriate, and in some cases way more powerful than trying to get a legal remedy, which may be a bad fit. And I'm not saying, Benny, that yours is one or the other, because I don't know. But I think I've heard a lot of questions about why can't lawyers, why can't lawyers, why can't lawyers? You know, you don't go to a dentist to have surgery on your foot.
If you do, call a lawyer. Cheryl.
I wanted to say almost the same thing. I'm hearing, I'm a social worker. Well, I was a social worker. I've been retired for a long time. But my social worker ears, maybe Benny's issue, maybe other issues, need an advocate to work with you.
True.
And it may not be a lawyer. It probably isn't a lawyer. And I'm thinking, maybe we need something like a group of social workers who are social workers for civil rights or something like that.
Somebody,
We could form a group like that, and that group could talk to Benny and talk to, I'm sorry, sister, I don't know your name again.
Jada.
Jada. I'm bad with names. So anyway, maybe that's what we need to do, is form that kind of a group that can advocate for people when it's not a legal, quote, legal issue. And I think we all know that our systems are broken.
That's what we here for.
And they don't work. And as hard as Buzz works and Bill would work, they can't fix the system. We have to work at fixing the system from below. And it's a huge task, but we have to do it. That's thank you,
Very good.
Cheryl.
Yes. Yes. I didn't see your name yet.
Karen.
Hi, Karen.
Yeah, and kind of to go along with that, and the comments that were made about this being a cultural issue as well. You know, I read the book, Tears We Cannot Stop, I forget the author's name, but it was very moving, and he talked in one chapter about reparation, and this group I'm in was talking about, you know, how could we, you know, what can we do instead of just coming to meetings, as you were saying, Ben.
Yeah.
And I've come across a couple things. One is happening this morning I was kind of torn which one to go to, in Amherst, where people are holding signs saying, willing to listen, around racial issues, I think was the focus, so that we can, begin to understand what blacks have to deal with every day, that we are unaware of. People talking to each other to understand the problem from another person's point of view is one thing. And another thing is, in groups that we're in, can we support people or groups like the first person that spoke, what's her name again? That group that is supporting people in high schools that are being discriminated against, that we could, in our groups, maybe take on or contribute somehow in any way we can, financially or otherwise, to support groups like that would support people that are being discriminated against. Like Benny said, white people can do that and add their voices to these different situations, or contribute to people who can't afford bail. And so many are incarcerated because they can't afford bail. I think, and you can, the author of that book was suggesting that can be part of actions under the kind of the what do you call it, the framing of reparations.
Could I just make an announcement? That the Immigrant Protection Project, we have a bond fund. We get bond for somebody who's being detained by ICE. We get the immigration judge, if we're lucky enough to get an immigration judge to set bond, they call it, same as bail. Then we have a bond fund through the ACLU in Northampton. Margaret Sawyer, Bill Newman, we gladly accept your money so that we can get these people out to go back to their families and children while they're awaiting a deportation hearing that we're doing. So,
and given your statistics about how many people of color are in jail because they can't afford bail, or just discriminated against just by being arrested and charged, that there should be an organization like that. I know there is, to address that population as well.
so Jada,
Yeah,
do I have to sing your name?
Yeah, just no, thank you. No, I just think of myself as a broke Jada Pinkett Smith, and that's how people remember me. But I just want to thank everybody for their comments and their willingness. As I said, I've been doing social justice work for a long time, and I have been a part of, Arise, and then there is this thing I do, RC work, co-counseling, or I would be really stark raving mad of what I go through on a daily basis. So I'm very, my heart is very warm to know that people are trying to, do some introspective work, to do some social work, to do all of that, because it is. I do know that there are people who I consider allies who are questioning, white allies and their privileges. So these are the people that I surround myself with, or I don't think I could go on. But I think the thing for me that hit me, and I left a small rural town in Texas because of this stuff. What is happening now is that, and when I spoke, I literally almost felt like throwing up. And again, there was a sister who came and walked me around the block and said, "Look, I know what you're going through." And that was validation. And then, of course, I have my friend who has a therapy dog with me who helps me. And this is helping me. But I think for me, what I've been through in these last 2.5 years, I'm going to have to leave the country. As I tell you, I'm leaving to go to China because it's been so bad. I have my own PTSD issues of growing up, what I went through. I mean, I don't want to have to tell you what it's like when you're in this, try not to get there, of what it's like when you're a child and you see the Klan come in your neighborhood. When I used to come here and tell Northerners what it was like with me being a Southerner going through that, it was horrific. So I've had to go through therapy and counseling and EMDR to go through that. And what I've been going through these last 2 years, 2.5 years, is reliving that it has almost been as bad in Northampton, what I've been going through. And it has been a legal matter because it has been restricting. I would have been in Switzerland in December to visit my friend who was there, who just finished Smith College, and her son was so terrified when Trump won. He was like, Jada, I have to get you from Trump. I said, honey, I'm going to be fine. But I've had to stay here and go through that. And I have to tell you, my ally right there with Tigre, who was there for me. So I have gotten, and I do appreciate people saying that perhaps, with the whole thing with the social worker, I have been really lucky in that sense, but it has been really damaging. So I do want to encourage people to go through that, to keep going through that, because I don't know how I could have made it, and I do understand why, and being a teacher, and I've been there with our young Black youth, our young Latino, and I am Native American Cherokee, that's why I got them fighting me. How they could go through this, because it is a crying shame, it's a dying shame, and I can see why. Also in my family, there's been issues of substance abuse. I do understand why they want to get out, because it is painful. So I do applaud you. In one way, you remind me of Mars D in some way, and I hope you take that as a compliment.
Oh, I do. I know him.
And, yes, I do appreciate that, because it is painful, and we do need these avenues there. I was trying to say to you, come here, is that I think it needs to be the young students in, either in law school or whatever the case, who take on these issues, who have the time, because who need that aid.
Well, again, I keep sounding defensive, but if I told you how many young law students are in clinics doing unbelievable work right now, that I can impress you. But we're going to Sharon, and then, is it Sharon? Sharon, sorry.
Close. The statistics of crime going down, the president trying to get everything back where he can send money to towns and states. Don't you feel that the states, towns, and cities, because they have to lay cops on and all these things, that they really want to keep things going so they can keep their jobs?
Yeah.
The crime's down, they can't work.
Yeah, if you ever read, Max Weber talks about how bureaucracies are self-perpetuating and they have to justify their existence, and so that's certainly true in these kinds of institutional settings. The correctional industry is an industry, it's a lucrative industry, and putting aside the privatization of some of these, which, by the way, the federal government's getting out, or it was pre-Trump. It was, yeah. But I think you're right, Sean. It's self-perpetuating. I've gotten this signal, so that's good news for you. You don't have to suffer me anymore. This has been really interesting for me, because I started with this sort of assertion that we're all products of our experience, and what we've now heard is a number of experiences that are real and concrete, tangible. And I appreciate Benny and Jada and everyone else who spoke here. So it's been a learning experience for me, and a good place for me to spend a sunny Saturday morning.